Alright, so I got something I got to test out here. In this Amazon box is something that's supposed to be able to replace every single charger you have, whether it's a laptop charger or an iPad or Mac or, you know, standard tablet chargers. This item is supposed to replace all of that. Every YouTuber is talking about it, and it's the UGREEN 300 watt 5-port fast charger. Is it really as great as, you know, Marquez says it is? Or is there some shady stuff going on? Is UGREEN paying off these YouTubers to say those things without actually testing it? Let's find out. I think it's a bit of a stretch to say it's going to replace all of your chargers, but a good portion of your chargers, I think it will, depending on if it works well. So as you can see here, if you're using just one port, the first port is guaranteed to give you 140 watts. The second and third port will give you 100 watts. And the fourth port will give you 45 watts, while the USB type A port will give you 22.5 watts. Now, most people are not going to be using this charger just to charge up one device. So the most likely scenario is that you will be using all the ports. And as you can see here, when you start to use all the ports, that's when it kind of divides that 300 watts between all the ports. These numbers are respectable. I like them. I have no issues with these numbers. But enough chit chat. Let's open up the box and see what we get. All right, so here we go. Open up the box. Pull it out here. It's sealed. Let's go ahead and rip it open. Very heavy. It's a lot smaller than I thought it would be. So that's where you plug it into your wall outlet. And then there are your ports. Yeah, so they do give you some decent labels on it. Has some rubber pads on the bottom. Okay, let's go ahead and set up this charger. I went ahead and I bought a bunch of UGREEN USB Type-C cables that are rated at 240 watts. Along with that, I also got this USB Type-C tester from MakerFire to test how much watt each device pulls. Now in this first test, to get a baseline of what the device is capable of pulling, I used the first port on both the UGREEN 200 and the UGREEN 300. The first port on the UGREEN 300 is rated at a max of 140, and the UGREEN 200, the first port, is rated at a max of 100. Now each device was plugged in to the charger, and it was the only thing plugged into the charger on the first port. So for a 2023 MacBook Pro, it was able to pull 85 watts on the UGREEN 300, 88 watts on the UGREEN 200, and then I also used the Apple 96 watt charger, which it was able to pull 85 watts, and then I threw in an Anker 20 watt power brick just to make sure that the meter was working properly, and it was, because the MacBook was only able to pull 18 watts. Then I used a 2019 Dell Latitude. I got 34 watts all across the board except the Anker 20 watt, which is understandable. Then I tested a Galaxy Tab 7 Plus. It pulled 34 watts on the UGREEN 300, 26 watts on the UGREEN 200, and 14 watts on both the Apple and Anker charger. A Pixel 8 Pro pulled 25 watts on the UGREEN 300, 26 watts on the UGREEN 200, and 18 watts on both the Apple and Anker charger. An Insta360 pulled half a watt all across the board, and a ThinkPad P15 Gen 2 pulled 0 watts all across the board. Now looking at this chart, we can gather three important details here. Number one, although you might have a laptop that has USB Type-C ports, you might not have power delivery. And so if we look at the ThinkPad, Lenovo does not allow power delivery over USB Type-C. You have to use their dedicated charger to charge and use the laptop. If you're going to buy the UGREEN 300 for your desk so you can charge your laptop, please be sure it has power delivery over USB Type-C. Otherwise, you're not going to benefit from it at all. The second conclusion we can come to by looking at this chart is that any low power devices like action cams or Sony cams, AirPods, earbuds, headphones, any low power device, even though every port on the UGREEN 300 is way more than capable of putting out more than half a watt. You don't have to worry about your low power devices. You plug your low power devices in and they're going to pull half a watt from these chargers. Nothing more, nothing less. So you don't have to worry about this charger frying your electronics. It's not going to happen. And then the third final conclusion we can come to is that UGREEN chargers support the latest fast charging protocols, and certain devices can take advantage of that protocol to optimize the charging and charge at a very fast rate. If we look at the Galaxy Tab 7 Plus, it was able to pull 35 watts from the UGREEN 300 and 26 watts from the UGREEN 200. But then it pulled a lousy 14 watts from both the Apple and Anker charger. Again, I understand the Anker charger, but the Apple charger is kind of weird because it is rated at 96 watts. So I was really puzzled as to why it was only able to pull 14 watts from the Apple charger. The Pixel 8 Pro is another example of super fast charging. It was able to pull 25 watts from the UGREEN 300, 26 watts from the UGREEN 200, and then 18 watts from both the Apple and Anker. Again, I understand the Anker, but I don't understand the 96 watt Apple charger. Some devices that you have may be able to take advantage of that protocol and give you super fast charging instead of standard fast charging, depending on how many devices you have connected to the charger, of course. That being said, this next chart here, I've plugged 5 devices up to each charger, the UGREEN 300 and the UGREEN 200, and I recorded the watt that each device was able to pull despite all 5 ports being taken. In column K here, you could see that each port has a different rating. So this is straight from UGREEN's website. These are their advertised rating based on 5 ports being used. Same for the UGREEN 200 as well. So the 2023 MacBook Pro plugged into port 1 was able to pull 81 watts, which is good because the MacBook Pro can only pull up to 85 watts. But that first port on the UGREEN 300 is rated up to 140 watts. Now on the UGREEN 200 watt, the MacBook Pro was only able to pull 63 watts, which is still good because that first port on the UGREEN 200 is only rated at 65 watts. The 2019 Dell Latitude was plugged into port 2, and that was able to pull 35 watts, but that second port is rated 60 watts on the UGREEN 300 and 45 watts on the UGREEN 200. The Galaxy Tab 7 Plus was able to pull 36 watts on the UGREEN 300 on port 3. That port 3 is rated at 45 watts. On the UGREEN 200, the Galaxy Tab only pulled 17 watts, which is weird because port 3 should be able to handle up to 45 watts. So that was kind of weird. Now the Pixel 8 Pro was plugged into port 4 and it was able to pull 18 watts. Port 4 on the UGREEN 300 is rated up to 20 watts. So we're still within range there. On the UGREEN 200, we were pulling 16 watts, but port 4 is rated at 20 watts. And then in port 5, we had an iPad 10th gen that was pulling 15 watts on the UGREEN 300. Port 5 is capable of 22.5 watts. And then on the UGREEN 200 watt, the iPad was able to pull 13 watts on port 5. Adding all those together on the UGREEN 300, we get a total of 185 watts. On the UGREEN 200, we get a total of 144 watts. So looking at this chart, the numbers are very similar to what they advertise, but on the UGREEN 200, so from port 3, 4, and 5, we're not really getting anywhere close to what UGREEN advertised. But you have to remember, that is understandable because the UGREEN 200 watt charger, which is this right here, is the predecessor to the UGREEN 300. I understand why the numbers don't add up. Yeah, sure, it is a little bit of false advertising, but the whole reason why I ended up buying this wasn't to compare it to the UGREEN 300. I actually got this because I liked the idea of this so much that I was like, hey, if I can get a smaller version of this to put in my backpack, then that will eliminate the need to walk around with all of these bricks. And that's ultimately the problem that I wanted to solve. Just one charger, bunch of USB Type-C cables is all I need to walk around with in order to charge all of my devices. Laptop, tablets, phones, AirPods, headphones, all with one charger. And that is exactly what it allows me to do. I was actually going to go with the Nexode Pro 160 watts. That was for $101, but there was two issues with that. It's only 4 ports, number one, and number two, it's a wall charger, so you don't have a power cable with it where you can put this on the desk and run the power cable to your outlet. What actual benefit do you get from these charger? Well, the number one benefit is essentially this charger is actually this, with the ability to not only charge multiple laptops, but to also charge your tablet, phone, and accessories. So basically you're getting convenience. Think about it like this, right? I walk around with my MacBook when I travel. This is the charger that I take. Look how big it is. And then look how big this is. Yes, it's slightly bigger and slightly thicker. You are able to charge a lot more devices with this than you are this. This only allows you to charge up to one device. This allows you to charge many devices. And then also, if you're the kind of guy that has a crew that follows you, one charger to charge them all. So with the UGREEN 300, which is this one right here, you could power and charge up to 3 MacBook Pros. 2 of those MacBook Pros will benefit from fast charging. The third one will charge at a normal rate. Now the UGREEN 200 can power and charge up to 3 laptops. All of those laptops will be charging at a normal rate. So if you always have a crew following you and you walk around with this, you'll always have their back in terms of charging their laptop. And then not to mention, in terms of occupying power outlets, this only occupies 1 power outlet. Where if everyone walked with their own chargers, if you have a crew of 3 people following you, that's 3 outlets you're going to need. But now that we established what benefits you can get from these chargers, why spend more than $100 on these when you can buy this 320 watt charger from Amazon for $60? It also has gallium nitride as well. So, why spend more than $100 on these when you can pick up that for $60? By just looking at this listing right now, I can tell you there's one glaring issue I have with this charger, and that's with the plug. Look at the plug. It's 2-prong. Now, these plug for the UGREEN is 3-prong. If a spike goes through your charger, it's going to use the ground plug on this to travel through the charger and out the charger. But if you have 2-prong, what it's going to do, it's going to go into the charger and then go through all of your precious devices and potentially fry your electronics. UGREEN has been making chargers for a very long time. As a matter of fact, a lot of YouTubers that I follow highly recommend these chargers and claim that they use these chargers themselves. Yeah, now some of them are sponsored by UGREEN. So whether they're just saying that or they truly mean it, I don't know. But for what it's worth, I'm a YouTuber and I use and love these chargers, and I am not sponsored by UGREEN. But there you go. I really like these chargers. I like the convenience they offer. I do think they're overpriced. But if paying more money means that you get high quality, then hey, I dig that any day. It all comes down to which would you rather? Would you rather trust this $60 charger to charge and not destroy your $3,000 MacBook Pro? Or would you rather trust a more expensive charger that's well built with your $3,000 MacBook Pro? Decision is yours. I'll leave you with that. Thanks for watching. My name is Z, and I'll catch you in the next one. Hasta luego, muchachos.